Good evening. We will call to order the regular Board of Education meeting of Monday, January 13th, 2025. Kristen, will you take roll call, please?
Tracy?
Here.
Eric?
Here.
Mark is absent tonight. Sean?
Right here.
Brian?
Here.
Aaron?
Here.
And Ann.
Here. I will verify quorum. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tracy, would you read our mission statement?
Working together to ensure high levels of learning for all.
Thank you. Kristen, was public notice of tonight's meeting given?
Public notice was given to the requesting news media. The agenda was posted in school district buildings and on the district's website.
Thank you, Kristen. Are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
We have two under number 8. We would ask the board to bring number 14 to follow 8, the trip request, and then number 13 to follow 14, so our visitors can be on with their evening.
Motion to approve the agenda with the following revisions, to move number 14 to follow 8, and then item 13 to follow number 14.
Second.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Brian, to approve tonight's agenda with the noted modifications, moving agenda item 14 to follow 8 and 13 to follow 14 to accommodate our guests. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Tonight's agenda is approved with those revisions. We do not have any requests tonight for public input on the published agenda items, so we will move right to welcoming our guests. So, Devin and Brian, if you'd like to come forward, you're going to talk to us about a trip.
Yes, we are. So we are looking to get the board's approval. Thank you. For a trip in the summer of 2026. So the tour company that we'll be going with this summer will be SDO Tours. We've gone with them the last 2 trips that we've done. And in addition to that, just to kind of do our due diligence to keeping this trip at a cost that we think is fair and achievable for as many families as possible. We did do a bit of scouting. We've taken the same trip across a different couple different tour companies this time, and we still found that SDO Tours is the company that comes back with the best price, while also being the most flexible with our needs and our wants for the trip that we go on.
So the cost that we're looking at is about $4,459 per student. That's based off of 20 students going. So if we don't get that 20 minimum, then we would have to go back to the families and talk to them about possibly adjusting that price. If more than 20 go, if we get above 25, then that'll lower the price. It includes round-trip transportation, our hotels, breakfast, dinners, and entrances to all museums. The only thing it doesn't include is the passport fee, travel insurance, lunches, tip, and spending money.
What that time frame is going to look like for us is that we will be traveling, hoping to depart on June 9th, so a couple weeks after the school year ends in 2026. Following board approval, we would be planning to, towards the beginning of February, promo this to our students in class with a letter going home to let parents know information, hosting that first parent meeting towards later in February, and then with that next September, once we kind of have our group of who's planning on going, hosting that first parent meeting, and then with the spring having our second parent meeting, and right before the school year would be out, we would do one last meeting just to prepare families for everything that they would need to know before leaving on the trip.
So the trip would be open to students that have finished French 2. So basically we start with the kids that are in French 1 right now, but when we take it in the summer of 2026, they will have finished French 2. And so sometimes we get asked, well, can kids in French 1 go next year? They could, But many parents are very hesitant at the fact of, well, really after 1 year, do they have enough language under their belt to be successful in the country? And we believe that at least 2 years minimum, just have that good baseline in terms of speaking the language and understanding what they're about to experience, just to make it a great trip for them. In terms of who the chaperones are going to be, they're sitting in front of you right now. Every once in a while, we do get parents that'll ask, hey, can we go on the trip? But we always share with them up front that it's really, the places are reserved for the students first. And so we got to make sure that we have enough students before we can open it up to parents.
Yeah. So with that, looking into a more detailed version of the itinerary, some people present, pointing at Leah, might be very familiar with many of the stops that we're going to take during this trip. So the first day would just really be a transportation day. So we leave here from La Crosse, take a bus to hopefully Minneapolis, and take that overnight flight landing in Paris sometime the next morning about 8 a.m. From there, we would get picked up by our private bus driver who would take us to the little city of Chartres, to the cathedral, kind of get our first meal, our first lunch in France, before traveling north to Caen, and hopefully do kind of a very casual tour of the city, walking around, checking out the castle. That third day, we'd get really into the nitty-gritty of the history of why that city is so important, from the Peace Museum, where the artificial port was during World War II in Aire-au-Manche, and get to visit the American Cemetery and learn stories of people that are buried there. Next day, continuing on, we would do a tour of the D-Day beaches, Pointe du Hoc, which has a really cool story with the American Rangers during D-Day. Get to visit very quickly the German cemetery just to see the cultural differences there, and then end after a couple hours in the walled city of Saint-Malo on the coast. It's got this really cool walls right on the coast, old city, new city, very, very neat. From there, we would go to Mont Saint-Michel, an old-fashioned abbey, right on the edge of the coast, very, very cool city. And then from there, we'd take a long trip down south to the Loire Valley, and take a tour of the castle at that local city we'd be staying in. The next day, we would visit Chenonceau and Chambord, two really, really neat castles in that valley, and then make our way back to Paris. We'd hit all the stops in Paris, including a bike tour, getting a real good overview of the city, visiting and ascending the Eiffel Tower, the Sacré-Cœur Cathedral up on the hill in the Montmartre district where we'd have our dinner. And then the next morning, with the plan of doing catacombs, the Louvre, going up the Arc de Triomphe, visiting and doing some shopping on the Champs-Élysées, and ending the time in Paris with a boat tour on the river. And then from there, something we were able to add back just because of last time going in the spring. The prices were crazy, but we're going to go back to the Alps. So going by train to Geneva, Switzerland, transfer by bus to the ski village of Chamonix, where we'd go up to the Aiguille de Midi, which is the highest point in that area, giving you a view of the peak of Mont Blanc, the highest mountain in the Alps. Getting to go to the Mer de Glace, which is an iceberg, or a glacier that every year they carve a giant hole into that you get to walk into. So very neat. And then they have a neat little amusement park there with some rides that the students went wild for last time. And then from there, we would, the next morning, hop on a bus and fly out of Geneva and head out back home.
So if that was tiring for you, yes, that's the whole point, is that we packed the schedule full. In terms of fundraising, a trip that costs this much, we have to be realistic in terms of what students are really capable of fundraising. So we really offer them the support if they want to. So they come to us saying, yeah, we're interested in fundraising, and then we can help and coach them along. We don't organize the fundraising because when we're looking at 20 students, and if you do a brat barn and you only make $200, it's only $10 a kid. And when you're looking at this type of a price, that doesn't make that much of a dent. And we're upfront with parents too that when you do fundraise, a lot of times it's just the spending money that you're looking for. That you're not going to really be able to cover the entire cost of the trip unless you have a really rich family member. So that's what we do in terms of fundraising.
We're also, it's not on the agenda, but we are familiar with a couple opportunities for scholarships, both through the travel company as well as the professional organization we're both a part of. And we kind of talk between ourselves of what students that are going would be most deserving of it. And so we do also work with that to provide the trip to as many students as possible. So with that, any questions from the board?
I feel like it was very well thought out. Like, it's very clear that you guys took a lot of time and effort to like plan this all out, because just making the trip in general is a lot, let alone all these fantastic opportunities that they might not otherwise see in their lifetime. I was just curious, on average, what kind of turnout do you have for these kind of field trips?
So as Brian had said, the goal is always 20 students. That's the magic number in the tour company world. It justifies the cost. It's just the group rate for the plane tickets, the bus, things like that. Traditionally, I think the last time we had gone, I think we were at
22?
22 students.
Well, so you typically do meet the 20 students.
Yes, and we were having a little conversation with Roger that throughout the students that we have in level 2 and 3, so students that would be qualified to go, there are already students that have kind of put a pin in it and are planning for it. When Karen Hellman had come to the board to ask about going to Ireland, we were brought up at their parent meeting about, well, do you know that it's the same summer? And so that we do know that there's families, so we think it's very doable to hit that 20 and even possibly go above it, again, further lowering the price of that trip for everyone.
For sure, thank you.
Anybody else have questions? I would echo what Tracy said. Your trips are always very well planned. I think we also always get very good reviews from your trips, from students, and Leah's nodding her head that yes.
It was a good sign that while I was talking, her jaw was open. I think she's jealous of the opportunity that, yeah.
She's probably not the only one sitting around the table who's jealous of the opportunity. So no, I too appreciate your diligence and you're continuing to put this together. So, what is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the request for the trip to France in June of 2026, as outlined in enclosure 14 trip and detailed by Darren and Brian.
Second.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Sean, to approve the trip request for a student trip to France in June of 2026, as outlined in enclosure 14 and detailed by Devin and Brian tonight. Are there any additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The trip is approved. Good luck with everything.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and then we're welcoming Danielle back tonight to go over our audit. Will this be the last time we'll see you, or?
It is.
Oh, okay, well, that's a sad note to start the meeting on, but we'll let you go through your things first. So we all have received a copy of the report she's going over tonight, so unless you want to do some introduction?
What I will say before, like you said, it's their last time. We have really appreciated working with you and your team, Danielle. And I just, before she goes into the audit, she'll be talking to you about us having a clean audit. And I just want to thank all of our administrators and staff. That doesn't happen without a big team effort. And so I just really appreciate everything that everybody does to take our management of our limited resources very seriously, abiding by all state, local, all of our laws, and just appreciate that a lot. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Danielle.
All right. Thank you, Janet. I have enjoyed working with the district these years. We've had a great relationship. When we come in, the staff is very accommodating and responsive to questions. So if I have questions, I'm getting the responses and the information back as I need them. So I appreciate all the work that they do while we're here. Sonia and Emily and Janet mostly, with getting that information. It's a lot of work to prepare for us to come, and then when we come, we're taking up most of Emily's days for the week that we're here. So I appreciate all of that she does. And I will start going through the audit. So I'm going to go through it rather quickly and on a pretty high level. If anyone has questions later, please let Janet know and we can get those answers back to you. So starting on page 4, so pages 4, 5, 6, and 7 are the independent auditor's report. So this letter goes through and it gives our opinion on the financial statement, which is a clean opinion. We are sure that that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. So that is the clean opinion in the first 2 paragraphs there. Explains how we go about doing our audit. We look at things on a test basis, so we don't look transaction by transaction. And then also it goes through and it talks about management's responsibility in the audit as well. The next pages, on pages 8.1 through 8.8, are written by management. This is management's place in the report to explain different balances, trends, factors for the district going forward. So it's their chance to explain and give a narrative on the financial statements themselves. On page 10 is the statement of net position. This is basically a balance sheet on a full accrual basis, as you would see it in any business. So this includes all of your current assets like cash, investments, taxes receivable. It also includes your long-term assets, so your capital assets, leases receivable, and deferred outflows of resources, which are related to your net pension liability from WRS and your OPEB or other post-employment benefits. The liabilities section includes all current liabilities and long-term liabilities, so it includes things like accounts payable, accrued wages, all of your bonds payable, all of your WRS net pension liability, and the OPEB liabilities. On page 10, towards the bottom, it gives the net position of the district. So as of the end of the year, with all funds, it's about $53.5 million. So that includes all of your capital assets in there, which make up a large portion of that. Page 11 is the statement of activities. So this statement, down towards the bottom, it tells you the change in net position for the year. So overall, the district increased its governmental activities net position by about $9.3 million and food service by $85,000. So the governmental activities includes everything but food service and your OPEB fund. Page 12 is the balance sheet for your governmental funds. This is on the fund basis. So now we get into the basis of the financial statement that you see your normal financial statements that you receive from management during the year. So the first column is the general fund. Then you have the debt service fund. Let me go back. General fund includes funds 10 and 27. So special ed fund and general fund. Debt service fund is your fund 39. Capital projects fund is your fund 49. The other governmental funds includes your fund 21, fund 46, where you're setting aside money for long-term capital improvement projects, and fund 99, which is your cooperative services fund. So overall, the fund balance for your governmental funds is $46 million. The next page, page 13, is a statement that takes you from that fund balance of $46 million and shows you the differences to get to that net position on the balance sheet that we saw earlier, or the statement of net position on page 10. So differences are capital assets, long-term note receivable, transactions revolving around the net pension liability from WRS and other post-employment benefits, and long-term debt transactions. Page 14 is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the governmental funds. So the general fund balance increased by about $2 million this year. That was mostly the result of conservative spending and strategic uses of grant funds. The debt service fund decreased by $128,000. Your capital projects fund decreased by $18 million, and that's because you received your bond funds earlier, and now you're using them to work on your capital improvement projects. And then the other governmental funds, which includes Fund 21, your gift and student activities, the capital improvement projects, and the cooperative service, those funds increased by $304,000 for the year. Page 15 is a reconciliation between the changes in the fund balance number that we talked about before and the change in the net position. So that's pages 15 and 16. Page 17 is the statement of net position and the financial statements for the food service fund, so Fund 50. So the balance sheet is on 17. Page 18 is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for Fund 50. So overall, the food service fund increased its net position by $85,000. Page 19 is the statement of cash flows, explaining the changes in cash for the year. Page 20 is the statement of net position and the statement of changes in net position for the fiduciary funds. So there's the scholarship fund, which is your beneficial interest in the Verndale, and then the employee benefit trust, which is the money that you've set aside for your OPEB liabilities. So at the end of the year, you have set aside assets of $3.5 million for your employee benefit trust fund. Pages 21 through 55 are the notes to the financial statements. So these go through, they explain further the different balances and transactions in the financial statements. I'm not going to go through them. They're pretty long, and if you have questions, please let me know. Starting on page 57 are some required statements that we have, giving you a little bit more information on the post-employment benefit funds and the WRS pension funds. Starting on page 60 is a statement of, it's the budget and actual statements for the revenues and expenses for the general fund. And again, the general fund on here includes funds 10 and 27. So it goes through on a little bit more detailed schedule of where the revenues and expenses came from. And the increase in the net change in fund balance was about $2 million. Page 61 gives a little bit more detail on the statement from the page before, breaking down funds 10 and 27. 62 is the budget and actual statement for the referendum debt for the debt service fund, Fund 39. Page 63 is the budget and actual statement for the capital projects fund. There are pages 64 through 67 are some more footnotes on those statements. Pages 69 and 70 give you the balance sheet and income statement, breaking out those non-major governmental funds. So you have the special trust fund, which is Fund 21, then Fund 46 and 99. Pages 71 and 72 are the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. On the bottom of page 72, you can see that you spent $3.7 million of federal funds, and the grants are listed above as far as what makes that up. And then page 73 shows that there was $20.6 million of state funds that you received in fiscal year '24. Majority of that is your general equalization aid. Pages 75 and 76 are the letters saying that we did the audit in accordance with governmental auditing standards, and we did not find any material weaknesses in internal control. Pages 77, 78, and 79 is a letter saying that we did the audit in accordance with uniform guidance, or the federal single audit standards and state single audit standards. So that means that when we're doing the audit, we're looking at a few grants in a little bit closer detail and looking at a few compliance items on those grants. So our major programs this year were, for federal was the ESSER grants, and then for state was the equalization aid, as it is every year, and then also the per pupil adjustment aid. So we did not have any findings on there. If you look at page 80, that's the schedule of findings and question costs, and that's where you can see that we have an unmodified opinion for the financial statements, federal awards, and state awards, and that we have no findings. We had no findings this year or last year. I know that was fast. Pretty high overview, but does anyone have any questions?
I want to thank Janet for all the work and for all the awards provided in this center. Was that a stone ahead of time? This is what we should pay attention to. So I appreciate that roadmap. An easy question. One of the things it says is this does not provide a legal determination of the district's compliance with the requirements referred to above. What consists of a legal determination? How often is that done, and how does that relate to this?
You know, I think it probably just means because we don't go through every requirement of the grants. So we're only looking at a few things within the grant that we consider to be bigger parts of the compliance, making sure that the district's expenses that you're charging to the ESSER grants were eligible expenses, making sure that you have expenses to support the claims that you submitted, that you received the revenue, and that you've recorded the revenue properly.
In its
Those are the bigger.
simplest terms, it's saying that they can't guarantee that everything is, is perfect, or there hasn't been some fraudulent activity, but everything that they have tested has passed through. And then with the other things that we do as a board and how we present the information, hopefully that gives you confidence that the finances have been effectively managed.
I see. So there's not an adjacent legal type of evaluation. This is the, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, this does require board approval.
Motion to approve the 2023-24 audit as described by Danielle and Jen, and enclosure number 13.
Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Aaron, to approve the 2023-24 audit and financial statements as reported by Danielle Temp and outlined in enclosure 13, along with support from Janet, of course. Are there any additional questions or comments? I would like to also extend our appreciation for the many, many years that your company serviced our district very well. I believe it was a positive relationship, so we
Yeah.
thank you very much for
All right.
all your hard work with us over the years, and wish you well.
All right, thank you. I
those
appreciate
in
the
favor?
opportunity.
Aye.
Opposed? The audit is approved. All right. We will then go to quite a number of donations tonight, so I'm going to turn things over to Janet.
Yeah, it's really fun to be able to list off such a long list of donations for the board to recognize. I'm starting out $500 from Catherine and Paul Shams for the On-Ability program. Gifts valued at $1,600 from members of Shepherd of the Hills Church for students in need. $1,500 from DBS Group for elementary school needs. $100 from Sue and R.L. Maleth for the district food pantry. $2,000 from Elizabeth and Catherine Brock for Onalaska High School students in need in memory of Tom Brock and in honor of Jan Brock. $50 for a memorial flag holder from the American Legion Auxiliary Post 336. $500 from an anonymous donor for the Onalaska High School student lunch accounts. $900 from student Ellie Dahl for student lunch counts. That's a really cool one. She just did this on her own. She did a fundraiser on her own and raised over $900. $1,500 from Ann Farning for school supplies for students in need. $400 from an anonymous donor for student lunch accounts. $100 from Elke Filke for student lunch accounts. She's one of our school nutrition staff members. So just a really nice variety of gifts coming in, and really appreciate those number of lunch accounts for students that are struggling in time of need.
Jared, can you tell us more about Ellie's effort?
Yes. Ellie had reached out earlier this fall to both me and to Jason. This was something she was passionate about. She devised a plan selling holiday T-shirts with all the proceeds going toward this donation. So, yeah.
If you look back on our Facebook postings, you'll see a picture of her with shirts that she was selling and then dropping off the check.
Again, much gratitude for a very long list of people who are sharing with us, and more importantly with our students, covering, it looks here to be every student in the buildings, in all of our buildings. So we appreciate that continued generosity and appreciate people thinking of us. All right, Leah, thank you for your patience as always. We'll start with you.
Actually, I'm going to
Oh,
jump first
you're
because
gonna-
I'm going to introduce what she's going to talk about.
Okay.
It ties in really well this month. You have a sheet of paper in front of you with a chart like this, just giving this as an example. We did a survey with all of our students around the Life at School questions, part of the strategic plan, at the end of November. And then in December, we met with students, 20 students from each grade level, 20 to 22 students, and trying to find students that were representative of the respective grade. Our guiding coalition had looked at the survey, identified the questions we wanted to find out more about. We identified the students, and then from there, a subtle difference we made this year, but it had a huge impact, and it was based off of something Tom Yashinsky did with the football team. He did something similar to this, but he gave the kids the questions a couple days in advance, like you see here. He gave them a spot to jot down notes. It seems like a simple thing, but it led to far better feedback than we've ever had in the past. Another simple thing that Tom suggested that we found out last year with a separate thing, we printed these on cardstock because cardstock means it's important, Leah, right?
Yeah.
Versus regular paper. So the questions in advance on cardstock made a huge difference, met with the kids, and then from there, one guiding coalition member, one grade level teacher met with half the seniors, another guiding coalition member, another teacher met with the other half, all the way down through freshmen. We got some great feedback from students, which Leah's going to talk a little bit about, but then our guiding coalition went through and has been identifying what are the themes, what are the easy wins, what are the things that we should look at changing, and how can we respond to the feedback. So Leah, I'll turn it over to you.
So I was in the sample of seniors, and may I also say that the sample was very well represented. There was a lot of athletes, a lot of school prioritized people, very, very random sample of people, which I think was very beneficial. Seniors that were in my group, they were definitely not pressured to talk about the topics that were presented, but when they wanted to speak on something, you could tell that they were passionate about it. But yeah, we talked about things that we thought we wanted to change, things that we all liked. Most of the people in my group, we all agreed on the same thing as seniors. And one thing that I appreciated a lot is how fast our feedback went into act. One of the examples I can think of is some of the seniors suggested that one of the doors was either unlocked or propped open during the beginning of the day, so when it was cold outside, they wouldn't have to walk so far around the school to get into the school. So Mr. Schaffner took into act, and he holds the door open for us now in the morning so we can quick get inside from our cars in the senior lot. But yeah, there was a lot of good feedback. One thing that I really liked that Mr. Schaffner told us before we started our discussion was that the most important thing to the staff is the students' voices. So I really appreciated the fact that a lot of my peers and I got to speak on things that we were passionate about and not just complain to them about our teachers. We actually got to give feedback. And also, one thing about having the questions in advance was if we didn't know what to suggest or what to change or what to keep the same going into the meeting, we could ask some of our friends who weren't in the sample, like, hey, do you have any ideas for this? It was really nice just to have the questions in advance. So, yeah.
And the feedback was outstanding, and as Leah said, it's led to some really simple things to change immediately, responding to student need. And by the way, we only hold that door open when it's cold. And who determines if it's cold, Leah?
You.
Yeah, correct.
So then it's got to be really cold.
But it was a really good process, grades 9 through 12. Some similar themes, some different themes as you would expect, thinking about a 14, 15-year-old versus an 18-year-old, but some really good things for us to think about as a guiding coalition at the high school.
I'm really impressed to hear that you guys took action on that right away. There's a lot of times when, you fill out surveys for things and you're like, are they ever going to even do anything about this? Or you never hear about it again. So that's super impressive that you took the feedback and you implemented strategies right away. Like, that's amazing. Thank you.
Jason.
Yeah, so last weekend was the Classic. Many people in our community, including in this room, were there. Appreciate everybody's help and support. The weather held off. We had 19 great groups in. It was full. I mean, it was a great crowd, and be a nice comeback from last year's kind of snow out, which we tried to have, but our community just puts so much into that weekend, and to see the smiles and just, I guess, joy on the students' faces all day long, and they are the thing at the end of the night when they do their performance, and they do it really well. So this year we also did it. We all allowed them to perform on Friday for the student body. We felt like it's important for everybody to see, this is the why, and this is what's going on. And quite frankly, when it affects 25% or more of our student body, I think it's well worthy to make that happen. So also happy to report as the first semester comes apart, we started Engage this year, and Garrett Silker, one of our counselors, really took the bull by the horns to get that going. We have over 700 students that participate and that twice a month, and it's been a really positive change. Not to say homeroom was bad, but it's been a positive change in the right direction to get students out and doing things, even if it's a short amount of time. It's been very positive for our school culture.
All right. Ben, middle school.
All right, thank you. Just a few updates from the middle school related to belonging and engagement. We also had some fantastic rounding conversations with all of our staff during the month of December. Again, we're able to find a few things we could implement right away and a few things that are going to be more long-term focus for us. But the biggest thing that I would want to highlight from that is one of our core questions is there anybody who's been especially helpful to you? And everybody that Jan and I met with had a number of people to rattle off, and so it just really speaks to the community, the culture, collaboration, and supporting one another that our staff has, which I think is fantastic. We're going to do something similar with students this in the next week or so, and I might borrow a few ideas from Jared that he shared there with us last week and then with you tonight as well. In the area of continuous improvement, we're just continuing to do some ongoing tweaks of topper time. The teachers have been really interested in how can we make it more responsive. Rather than changing only 3 times a year, our intervention groups, how can we change it more frequently? And so, for example, just to share an example with you, our 8th grade math team has been, right before break, they did some assessment on the 3 standards that were a huge prereq to be successful in the upcoming unit. And then based upon how students did there, that's how they're determining their intervention groups for kind of the month of January, and just making sure that we're doing everything we can to be responsive and help students be successful in the here and now as well. And then a final note, just in the area of belonging, we recently started a new club, the Crochet Club, and this one was student-generated in the sense of the interest, right? Students had come to a few different staff members and said, we're really interested in knitting and crochet, and like, would you teach us? And so there was kind of an organic desire to start that, and so that just got started recently. And then a ski club, our first ski club of the year, got canceled due to some bad weather, and so we're having that first one Wednesday night. We have like 107 or 108 students signed up to go to ski club, so it's going to be a busy night. I'll be there myself. I don't know how much skiing I'll do, but it's going to be fun. So.
Awesome. Todd from elementary.
Thank you. Coming back from a break always gives a wonderful opportunity to refresh expectations and routines and procedures, and so that happened as we came back. As did winter assessments that happened. We actually, prior to break, had our first round with the Act 20 screeners, and so our interventionists and kindergarten through third grade teacher teams worked hard at preparing personal reading plans that then went out to families, along with all the results of the screeners too. So that was quite a task, and we're very proud of our interventionists for taking such a great leadership role in all of that. We have 3 days in February when Shannon Keebler is coming back for some math professional development. You may have heard us talk about her. And so we're planning out those days. We're really seeing all of those daily practices that she modeled for us the last time she was here. So we're really excited about having her come back to our schools in February. And end of the semester, of course, is coming, so our teachers are working on their progress reports, and we're planning to get those out on the 22nd, next week. At Eagle Bluff specifically, our staff participated in Underground Spirit Days. I don't know if you've heard of this happening. I think some of the other schools have done it. So on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we had different Spirit Days that just our staff participated in to see if our kids could identify. It took them a little while to catch on that we were actually doing something, but for the teachers, it was a blast. So, and that's what kind of what it was focused on, but the kids enjoyed it too. We're also continuing to participate in WOW Fun Fridays. That's we're well on our way. So one Friday a month, staff get together for activities that focus on mental health and wellness in general. But we are working on a puzzle project where each staff member is creating their own puzzle piece with something unique about them. We're going to put that together in the lounge. So that's what's happening at Eagle Bluff. Turn it over to these guys.
I have to ask, what were some of the themes?
Oh, what we did?
Underground.
Well, one day we all dressed in all black. And you know, when we weren't all together, I think it was a little hard to pick up on, but a few students did. The second day was we had to drink out of something other than a cup. So people had, watering cans and buckets and whatever you can think of. And then the last day was pajama day. So that was kind of easy at the end. But yes, we had a good time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think just giving the staff something fun to do. Yeah.
So we've also heard of that underground staff dress-up day, so we may entertain that, knowing that it went well at Eagle Bluff. Just something that had took place today at Irving Perch. Officer Myers visited our second grade students. She was part of our presentation around community helpers, so she did that with each second grade class. But then a celebration for our district, I think, is as part of her presentation, she read Push Restart, which is a picture book about resilience, self-regulation, and problem solving. That was written by Mary Shams, who's Eagle Bluff's administrative assistant. I know it's a long time in the making and just recently released, so just a great connection and celebration.
Yeah, at Northern, we have been very busy as well. Our PTO is working on some free, fun family events. We have one coming up towards the end of January for a movie night and a bingo night on February. And we also have our family reading night coming up on January 30th as well. I will be reading some books in an igloo, not one made of ice, an indoor igloo that we are able to use. So that will be fun. And then just a couple of things to share that have been exciting at our December staff meeting. I started last year doing We call it speed dating, but they're not really dating. They share strategies that work in their classroom with another teacher, and they get 3 minutes, and then they shift, and they get to do it about 6 times. And then they talk with them about how they can implement that in their classroom. And we did that just a couple days before break, and then since break, I've been able to see a lot of people implementing those strategies in their classroom. So really neat to see them learning from each other and implementing those strategies right away. And then somewhat similar to what Jared shared, in October when I did my student rounding groups, which look much different with kindergartners than they do with seniors, many students shared the foods that they like or don't like at lunch, the fruits and vegetables that they don't want to try or that they've tried for the first time and they're excited about. But something that we have done differently since then is our nutrition services staff have worked really hard to offer 2 hot lunch options for our students and then a different cold option as well. We had mashed potatoes today, Sean. Yeah, that's Sean's favorite. So I'm excited to ask those questions of our students again and see if that has made an impact for them on having that more choice. I know that some things that we see around the building, like kids are eating most of their food, we're throwing away a lot less. Mr. Matt's not cleaning up as much off the floor, things like that. So I'm excited to see what they say if that had that impact for them.
Do you plan to continue doing those speed dates? I mean, that sounds really cool.
I typically do it twice a year because every month would be a little too much. But yeah, I try to do that kind of once in the winter and then once again like mid-spring-ish. But it has been really neat, especially because sometimes they end up paired with somebody that they wouldn't regularly talk to, or sometimes a classroom teacher might think that learning something from an art teacher might not happen, but they might learn a really great engagement strategy from an art teacher that they might not have thought of before. Or something that I've seen a lot around the building is one of our academic interventionists shared a strategy she was using for math fluency that included a lot of visuals that are different from what they've used before, and I'm seeing a lot of people using that around the building with some great success right now. So it's just neat to put people into a place to talk to someone about what works in their classroom and then have them see it and put it into practice as well.
That's awesome, thank you.
Yes, as always, lots of great things going on at all levels, all student focused. So thank you all for your hard work, and as we move into the cold, probably a lot more inside recesses, so. Yeah. All right, and we have some more donations that will require our approval tonight.
All right. We have $5,000 from Eagle Bluff Elementary.
I skipped, go ahead, sorry.
I know, you took me off guard
I'm
too.
sorry.
So that's all right. Do you want to go back to where you?
Yeah, let's go back,
Okay.
sorry, and then, that's my apologies. And I was looking right at you, Ben, sorry. We'll start with the high school and middle school building projects. We'll start at the high school.
Just want to share, Fowler & Hammer has been outstanding about trying to minimize the disruption throughout this entire project. I've been so impressed. I know Jason has also with the gym lately. They're doing a great job with that, working with us to make it as minimally disruptive. The big projects in the last 2 weeks has been focused, as you can see, on the Tech Ed edition. The walls are almost all up. They've been covered with plastic for the mortar, and the plan is for next week, the crane is coming in to set the joists, and then the roof going on shortly thereafter. So it's going to really look different within a week. And if we scroll down, the Phi-Ed storage area is almost completed. A portion of it's painted. The fencing is going in quickly, the fencing that making the different areas for storage, so it's broken down. But that area should be done soon, in addition to a bigger hole that's going into the wall from the south storage into the gym for ease of getting equipment in and out. That'll be happening here in the next week. And then the last piece is the elevator addition. As they said, they punched a hole in the wall up by the mezzanine, and that's the final piece that had to be added before the elevator itself can be installed.
Any questions about the high school? All right, middle school.
All right. I don't know if we have any pictures tonight, so I'll just do my best to paint you a picture in your mind. Today, we unofficially got access to the new gymnasium, which is fantastic. And the first official thing in the gym is going to be our music concerts in a couple of days. It's ironic, but we put a tarp down after school today to protect the brand new floor, and we're setting up, going to be practicing in there for the concerts for later this week. And so, and then PE will start in there and indoor recess with a little more space starting next week in the new gym. So that's really exciting. It looks amazing. It looks fantastic. I mean, it looks like a high school gymnasium, and so it's great. That's the biggest news. Over the break, that we had to do a recent shuffle of some staff and where they were working because of a kind of a waterfall effect with them needing to take over one of our 8th grade science rooms to carve out space for an IT power closet room and everything. And so just another shout out to our staff who've been super adaptive and flexible throughout this whole project. And so I had to shuffle about 6 staff and where they were working, and everybody was great about it. That's good. Progress is being made on our new band room, and it is like 3 times as big as the old band room. It's huge, and it's going to have practice rooms and storage built in. It's going to be wonderful. That should be ready hopefully sometime late February. And then progress is being made on the southeast wing, where 8th grade and the foreign languages and resource rooms are going to be coming. So they've got the whole first floor there is all framed out, and the concrete's all in place, and the roof/floor, and now they're going to start building the walls for the second level. So continue to make progress with that southeast wing as well. And again, I wish I had some pictures for you, but no update from Market and Johnson on that end. So,
Well, Nick must have put some pictures of the gym on social media.
oh, did he? Okay, I
and
hadn't seen that
there,
just today.
it's
Yeah.
Exactly what you said. When I looked at it, I was like, holy cow, it looks very much like the high school gym. The bleachers and the floor, it's really stunning. So that's exciting.
It is, and I got some training on all the audio systems and the video systems and how to control the baskets and the bleachers and everything, and it's super intuitive and very easy to use. So it's going to be great.
That's exciting. Awesome. All right. We have some resolutions to be considered at the coming up delegate assembly next week. So I'm going to turn things over to Brian. We have enclosure 12.
Did everyone get a chance to look at the resolutions?
Yes.
I saw only 2 that we might want to talk about. The first one that I found, I was in favor of all of them, but these 2. Resolution 25-04, decoupling public and private school funding. Thoughts on that?
Can, what's the, what?
So if you want.
Can I
Yes,
jump in
that's
on
what
that?
I-
Absolutely.
I was going to write a communication to the board, and I totally forgot to do that. That one.
Making me look bad.
No. I'm trying to make you look good. There's pros and cons to that one, and I'm sure that's why you're struggling with it. Decoupling it basically kind of pushes it underground, which is kind of the intent, is to not have it being out in the forefront and being such a part of the public schools levy, because those are students that are within our boundaries that have chosen to go to the private schools. So there are kids, but they're just choosing to go to another school. As you remember, we tax for that, and then that money is transferred to the private participating voucher school. So the good thing about decoupling it would be we're not taxing for it. It's about $1 million. It'd be about $1 million less than what we taxed this year, just for this year alone. The bad thing about it is it will still come away from the school districts from the standpoint of the funding, that is going that direction, and we just won't be able to track it. And as you know, in the communications that I provide for you in the budget book, I only go back to 16-17. When I researched all of this to pull that piece of information together for you, it's because that's as far as I can go. After that, was part of the big pot of money, and you were not able to identify what the dollar amount is. So there's pros and cons with that resolution.
If I'm it's a little more transparent in the current system.
It's transparent now.
In the current system, we would be moving away from that transparency to take it.
We lose sight of it.
Okay. Any other questions?
I think people like transparency. I mean, you don't have anything to hide. As we saw with our very nice audit here, we are on the up and up, and I think keeping it transparent is a good idea.
So you're saying we would not support this?
That's just me.
One other question, so the transparency thing beyond that, in terms of how clearly we allow ourselves to look at or others, but is there a material effect at the end of that in terms of students that would pursue funding either way?
No, for those, if it came out of the entire pot, so the whole funding pot for schools, maybe a community that's way up north that has no voucher schools would fare worse because in a way it would be when it's tied directly to that community, they're not participating because there are no voucher schools. Whereas if it's statewide, that funding would reduce their funding. So there's more of a one-to-one tie from a community perspective with it the way that it is right now. But again, is that good or is that bad? It's two different ways of looking at it, not really passing judgment on whether it's good or bad. It's probably more the transparency thing.
So, thumbs up, let's do a thumbs up if you want me to vote for it the way it is, or thumbs down if you don't want me to vote for it the way it is. Don't support.
I don't support it.
Aaron?
I'm struggling,
He's here.
right? Because, the way I'm thinking about it is that in the here and now, that transparency might be helpful. Somewhere down path, it might be advantageous to, from a legislature, how they want to, deal with funding, right? It's really hard to understand it without understanding the intent behind it. But I would,
Okay.
no.
John? All right, gotcha.
Just to clarify, Brian, this is more or less coming from us. There's other districts that are all going to be voting as well.
Yeah, we go
Essentially,
into this
so we're
room,
just
there's like
giving our
418 of us, and they're voting on this. And then
Sure.
these resolutions are what WASB supports to go to the legislature. So it's nothing we're voting on that this is going to become the way things are.
Sure.
We were voting on ones last year that were 20 years old. So a lot of times they sit there.
Thank you.
The other one that I thought we should talk about would be 25-08. So this one, they want to do it by district, not by building. So we get a report card for our whole district, which would be hard to compare our buildings. If you look at our strategic plan, we're looking at buildings, which is helpful. So what's the board's pleasure?
What do our building administrators think?
I thought you were to say
you,
something.
Jared.
Yeah, I thought Jared was going to say something.
No, I wasn't. So my understanding on this one is that, the huge piece of this is it would be achievement only, not growth, which is a major deviation from the current practice. For what it's worth, I like seeing growth and achievement factored in. But the big piece of this is it would take away the growth factor.
If WASB were here, why would they want to do that? Do any of us know? What would that do for us that's advantageous?
The only thing I can think of is that it might simplify some of the report card just because there are so many different calculations that are made based on achievement and growth and target group and, all of those different things. And that's been an evolution over time where they've added those things to kind of try to account for differences between buildings and districts. as far as my opinion, I think it's kind of what you said, Brian. It's difficult to look at school by school then if we're only getting a district report. So we already get a district report and we get our school report.
And it does say that, Eric, in the rationale on the handout, that exactly what Lish said about wanting it to be simpler. And it says to establish consistent scoring metrics across grade bands, such as K through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12, rather than individual school building configurations that may differ from district to district.
I think there's a written rationale. I think it's interesting though sometimes what's underneath that, because if this isn't bottom led, like it's, what would the action, like the last one was transparency, and the rationale wouldn't be, we want to be less transparent. There'd be language that would maybe hide that type of thing. So this, it's helpful to hear, I think that actual, like what WASB says, but from our building administrator level, what would your thought be on why we wouldn't include growth? That's just helpful to me.
I also think there's frustration that you could have 5 high schools with the exact same score, like an 80. One of them could have really low achievement, one of them could have really high achievement, and then, but they look like they're all the same because they all have the same composite score of 80. I suspect that's probably part of the, for some school districts, that's part of the frustration.
It seems to eliminate some transparency, this,
Or kind of dilute it a little bit.
yes,
Yeah.
maybe that's it,
Yeah.
better. Speculating, it's simpler for them, that's what they're saying, is this is just simple. But
These resolutions don't necessarily come from WASB, people submit. So it comes from many places. We could submit, if you wanted, this board could submit resolutions.
So they don't have a vetting process by which they determine credible and forward, or just they all go?
I think they do, but what I'm saying is, it's not like a WASB idea. It's an idea that came from somebody else in this state. And that's why Brian said, some people bring them back year after year after year, or try to bring them back year after year. So you're voting on something that's been on the books for 20 years and nobody's gotten their way yet, so they're still trying.
Keep bringing it back, and then when we look at them, someone can stand up and try to amend it, and then you go through, it just turns into a big mosh pit.
And that's, and when you ask about vetting, that's what happens in the delegate assembly, that's where they vet it. Yeah. All the districts get a shot at it.
if you're going to the convention, it might be interesting to.
You
pop
can
in
do
and
it.
just
No,
like-
No, really, I'm not married to this.
That's all right.
No.
But just to observe, if you wanna, you know.
It is. I do take my Sudoku.
Yeah.
Just
Everywhere you
transparent.
go.
All right, so how do we, what would you like me to do? Do we want to support this, or would we,
I agree with your opinion on it.
Same.
John?
Yep, I agree.
Okay,
And thank you for doing this, by the way.
you owe me.
I know.
We appreciate it.
Is there another resolution anybody'd like to talk about that I didn't cover? Okay. I'm done.
All right. Now, Janet, donations.
All right, we have for donations that will need board approval, $5,000 from Eagle Bluff Elementary PTO for the Encore program. And Todd will, why don't I stop right here and let you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, I can talk about this. Encore, you may know this, but the Encore team in our schools, it consists of music, art, PE, LMC, technology. Years ago, our PTO established a separate fund in their funds that was really inspired by the box tops for education. And we collected thousands of these things, right? So, and it was really spurred on by the Encore team and was used by them for extra purchases that maybe were beyond our budget. And so that fund kind of grew, but it kind of sat there. And so the team got together and determined some things that they would like to purchase, and so went to the PTO and with that amount, and so PTO is donating that to us to use in that regard. So that's where that came from. So.
Thank you. New winter clothing and school supplies worth $2,506 from Bernie Buckner for students in needs. Bernie Buckner is a vendor of ours. $3,030 in gift cards from members of St. Patrick's Church for students and families in need. So once again, just real great donations from our family, or from our community members.
Does anyone have a desire to take these separately?
I'll make a motion to approve the donations as presented in item 15, $5,000 from Eagle Bluff PTO for the Encore program, the $2,506 from Bernie Buckner for students in need, and $3,030 in gift cards from members of St. Patrick's Church for students and families in need.
I'll second that.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Tracy to approve donations from the Eagle Bluff Elementary PTO to the Encore program, from Bernie Buckner for new winter clothing and school supplies, and from St. Patrick's Church for students and families in need in the form of gift cards. Are there any questions or comments? Again, much appreciation for these very generous donations to, again, all very student and family focused. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Those donations are approved. Thank you, Janet. And Lori is going to talk to us about our annual open enrollment.
Yes.
Thank you.
And there's
Have a
enclosure
closure.
16 also. So it is January again, and our statewide open enrollment application window opens in February. So if a school board is going to set any space limits for open enrollment applications, it has to be done at a board meeting in January. So that's why every year I bring this information to you in January so it can be considered. One of the things that we do each year is just reiterate what's called our guaranteed and our preferences for students. So in our policy, board policy that governs our open enrollment, for students that are guaranteed, which means which students that are open enrolled will we either accept or continue to accept in the district. And our guaranteed population of open enrolled students are any student that is currently attending with us. So that would continue. Some school boards and school districts have families reapply for open enrollment every year. Some have them reapply at certain intervals, like going from elementary to middle or middle to high school. We don't do that, so if a student's accepted under open enrollment, then they continue to be guaranteed open enrollment space in our district going forward. We do have in our policy also students that we give preference to. So those are students that are siblings of currently open enrolled students. Those are our students that we give preference to. The last few years we did a little bit of a policy change just due to the limited space in special education. If the sibling is a child with a disability, there also has to be space available in our special education programming also. We also try to make sure, and I think we do a pretty good job of this, that when families want to open enroll to us and there are students that are already attending and then siblings come into pre-K or kindergarten, we try to make sure that they stay in the same school too, so that we can keep families together just for the sake of the family. So we do look at that right away, and where are those students, older students already attending, and can we keep them in the same elementary school as their siblings? So those are the guaranteed approvals, and then the preferences. The next page of the enclosure is our regular education open enrollment space determination. So what we do for this consideration is we roll over all of our currently attending students, open enrolled or our district residents, and we project them into the next grade level. So that's why, like our pre-K, we don't know how many pre-K students we will have for next. Again, this is for fall of 25-26. This is what the projections are for. But all the other numbers in that middle column, as of January 6th, we'd have to pick a date so that otherwise it's like continuously going up and down. But that's, as of January 6th, that was our projection into the next grade level. So seniors graduating, incoming, pre-K to kindergarten, and then all the way down. We have stated in several board meetings that we are a district of declining enrollment, and so the recommendation from myself and the administrative team is that there are no restrictions on any grade level during this open enrollment window for regular education. Okay. And then the next page of the enclosure is special education. This gets a little more complicated. Again, we project students forward, so early childhood into pre-K, pre-K into kindergarten, 5th grade to 6th, 8th grade to 9th grade, and then seniors that are either graduating or staying for transition programming. We look at all of those numbers. And then I look at capacity of our programs and our services within each of our buildings, knowing what that projected number is, at least at this time. Again, a lot can change before September, but this is the best we can do at this time to look at, do we have capacity to accept more students than we already have? So that's kind of the process. And the chart there indicates that at cross-categorical programming is kind of the bigger program across the board, where we have the most students. And with the calculations for this next fall, there's 0 space available in cross-categorical programming for elementary, 1 space available for middle, and 13 at the high school level. And then the rest of those areas that are listed for programming, we have met or exceeded the recommended caseload maximum for any of those programs. And so right now there's no space available in our district for those related services or other programs. So looking at recommending that we don't have any space available in any of those other areas. And why do we set limits on special education? I think historically what this tells me too, first of all, is that if you recall, like the last few years, we've had more space available even than what we have this year going forward. And that tells me that we're adequately staffed and that we are at capacity too. And that's a balance. If we're overstaffed, we'd have more space available. If we're understaffed, we'd have less space available. So it's kind of like your taxes. Don't pay in more than you're going to get back. But also it tells me that we have a lot of student needs and that we're meeting them, but that we don't have a lot of capacity to bring in students from other districts who have specific needs that we can't guarantee we can meet because we don't have those resources available. Also, one of our factors for special education, and this is not unique to us, is that staffing positions for special education are often difficult to fill. We have teachers on emergency licenses in internship years or practicum years. We have unfilled positions for paraprofessionals. And that's another area on this page too that we added. It's kind of a COVID thing that started when we were really having a hard time filling paraprofessional positions, that if an open enrollment application, the IEP for that student has paraprofessional needs, that we'd have to hire additional staff. We have difficulty doing that, so that would be that we don't have that program or service available for that child. And then, of course, the cost to the district too. So those are the factors that we consider.
So I just have
Questions?
a question. Yeah. So you had mentioned that we're currently adequately staffed for the students that we have. What opportunities do you see or potential cooperatives like we did for I believe was it physical therapy?
Yeah.
With another school district? What opportunities are there for possibly additional cooperatives between districts to support students that choose us and want to be here within our district?
Yeah, that's hard to answer. I think we aren't unique to having difficulty filling staffing positions. And it's also difficult because it's a projection. So we set limits now, then we get the applications. If we didn't set limits and we took all applications and then discovered that we didn't have the staffing to meet the needs of the students that we approved, and then we can't find staff to fill those positions, now we're not even meeting the needs of our students, our resident students, in addition to those students with open enrollment. So I'm not sure how, like, a cooperative agreement, unless you can really project out what that's going to look like and how you would split, like, a position of a teacher or a speech therapist or something like that. How we would do that at this time, not knowing how many are gonna apply, how many we would accept, and how many we could actually meet the needs of.
So how did that work then where we did approve that cooperative? Is it because it was during the year and we realized we needed more people, so then we reached out, like, based on need, or?
Yeah, so the one for physical therapy specifically might be a little unique. We used to contract for that service with someone locally that contracted with all the area districts, private contracted. And then when she retired, the person that worked for her was employed by Holman. And because she had also worked in our district, we worked out a deal with Holman. So it had previously had been a contracted service. So.
Isn't it also fair, you use the word projection, which is, probably needs to be bolded in, because in addition to servicing our own kids, it's, there's always the possibility that more of our own children are going to qualify for special.
Or move in.
Yes. So it's, it's a little bit of a moving target always, I think, and it's hard. And we're not the only district making these tough decisions.
I don't know of a district that's not.
Yeah.
At least in our region. There might be other areas outside of our region. Yeah. The other, if you recall, we had a discussion at a board meeting about the number of special education paraprofessionals that we've asked for permission to hire this year. All of those have been because of student needs that are resident students. So unanticipated for this year, in addition to what we already had. I don't know if next year will bring the same thing. It's hard to predict.
Right. It's
Yeah.
hard to know.
Sonia might be able to answer this. Do we currently have any open positions for paraprofessionals that we haven't been able to fill?
Yeah, we have one at the high school that's in special education as of right now, and then one at Eagle Bluff that we've kind of paused on filling.
We also, and I know this isn't taken into account when we figure out space determination, but we have a school psychologist position we can't fill this year, and they're very integral in that evaluation process of any child with an IEP. And we have two brand new school psychologists who are doing their internship this year. Doing great, but new to the profession, so that adds a lot of support to our staff too.
Well, just that school psychologist part, I think we kind of mentioned, like, would CISA be able to help facilitate us to have more cooperative? I'm just trying to think of ways or strategies that we can support our own students as well as any potential students we could have when we are missing services or missing staff to fill those spots.
And we're all trying to hire from the same pool. Or steal from each other, which sometimes happens. And CISA serves a need when we have like a low incidence disability where we don't have maybe enough, kind of like the PT, but for example, we don't have a high population of students with hearing impairment. So CISA hires it's called a DHH teacher, so it's a deaf and hard of hearing teacher. And she works in I don't know, 15 different districts. I'm not sure if that's the number, but all over the region because she has a small number of students she sees at every district. So that's a benefit. So then we contract basically with CISA for those services. So they would need to then look at, you know, in what you're maybe suggesting is there a way they could hire staff and then contract with districts to fill some of those gaps that we might not be able to fill. And there's a funding piece there too for CISA from an employment perspective.
And they would be drawing from the same pool that we're
Yeah,
drawing.
yeah, yep.
So what we're voting on tonight is a guaranteed spaces, but if the opportunity presented itself once the school year is going and we know actual numbers, does that open the door that they could potentially accept other students or no?
First, I want to make sure that, so the guaranteed, the information I presented at the beginning is who are we guaranteeing? We are only guaranteeing currently enrolled students. Who are we giving preference to in the applications? Our siblings. What you're voting on is whether to set limits on open enrollment applications or not. And the recommendation is to not set them in regular ed, but set them in special ed at the recommended number. But to answer your question, we have struggled for many years around, like, when do these space limits go away? And my understanding is that once the whole application process, which doesn't actually end until June or July, is completed, a school district could decide not to even, just like, we don't have to pay attention to those anymore. But we've had lots of conversations around that with the administrative team. So, for example, that would mean that a family that wanted to open enroll to us that we've denied during the regular open enrollment window, now someone else that didn't apply during the open enrollment window applies for alternative open enrollment after July 1st when we can accept those applications, and now we have no space limits. So we're giving preference to the alternative open enrollment applications, and we still may not have space available. Nothing may have changed, we don't know, in our availability for room. So our decision as a district has been to keep these space numbers through the entire school year. So what I do is I create a spreadsheet for myself, really, and I review every IEP that comes in with an open enrollment application or an alternative open enrollment application. And I make, like, if you approve these numbers, I will make a spreadsheet that has high school, 10 cross-categorical, and I'll go space 1, space 2, space 3, 4, 5, all the way to 10. And as those applications come in, if we approve them, I'll put that student's name in, grade they are, what services they needed, until those are full, and then we don't have any more space. So I keep track of that each year.
I'll make a motion to approve the open enrollment restrictions as outlined in enclosure 16 and detailed by Lori.
Second.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Brian, to approve the open enrollment restrictions as outlined in enclosure 16 and detailed by Lori. Are there any additional questions or comments? I just want to say I appreciate the amount of work and quite frankly, the knowledge you bring to the job you do all the time. But the amount of work that goes into making these really, really hard decisions. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The open enrollment restrictions are approved. Thank you. Lori, we're going to stick with you for the youth risk behavior survey. We have enclosure 17, several.
I don't believe he's going to bring it up, though, because those are just actual surveys.
Oh, okay.
So every other year, we are offered the opportunity to have our 8th through 12th grade students participate in what's called the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. This isn't new to us, it's been going on for good or bad, either positive, healthy choices or not so positive, healthy choices. And then we can look at programming for, sorry, turned it off too soon. Programming initiatives for like our school counseling program, and see like what kinds of things should we be focusing on. The county looks at that information and they take it. They just presented a their final report from the 2023 survey, and they use it a lot in grant writing, in looking at community-based needs. So it's valuable information. We always come back after the survey is taken by our students and share what our trends are and even do some comparison of previous results and then how we might compare to the county or the state also, if that's available. So the surveys themselves with the questions are in the attachment. We also have the option to do like an extra set of questions. The last few times we've taken this, we have taken the optional questions called adversity and protective factors. We would like to continue to do that because then we have some comparable data over the years. And when we first selected that, I think it gave us some really good information. So the reason we come to the board for approval for this is because the nature of the questions themselves in one of our board, even though it's an anonymous survey, we're asking some pretty personal questions of our students about their behavior. And so parents can opt their children out of this survey. All they would need to do is contact the school counselor at their child's school. Remember, it's 8th through 12th grade, so middle school or high school. Just say they don't want their child to take it, or the student themselves can refuse to take it. We can't require them to take this. We would like to have them, and it's good to have everybody included, but it is not something we would require. Registration is open right now, so each school has to register for it, pick a date that they're going to administer it. The survey is open until June 13th, and with board approval, the middle school and high school would administer it this spring.
What kind of notification do parents get? You said they can opt out. Do they get it sent an email like, hey, we're taking this, or?
Yeah, we don't need to get permission to take it. It's an implied consent, and if they don't want them to participate, they will. We have a school counselor at each of the buildings that coordinate it, and I believe they send a message out to families.
They get a copy of the parents also see a copy of the questions, so they can see specifically, not general, but specifically what are the
What's
actual
being
questions.
asked.
And they've been doing this every year?
Every other year. COVID kind of messed it up. I think we ended up doing it, did we do it 2 years in a row, I think, with COVID, if I recall. And then they skipped a few more years than normal. Normally it's every other year, so you can go back and look years back at, like, the CDC has a whole web page on the YRBS.
Thank you, Laura. One of my first questions is, what does this do for us? And I remember how I remember citing this in papers I wrote a long time ago, so I know how long it's been going on. At the classroom level, or at the classroom desk level, what does this look like? Because we like data, but it's on the life they live. So when we ask questions about some of these things, they're social determinants at the data level, but they're personal tragedies. So if we're asking a student about some of these things, what introduces this to them so it doesn't land as an impersonal scantron in a random class, and they've had some sutures open that they've worked very hard to keep shut? How does this not land like that?
That's a good question. It's hard to know how seriously students take it, too. Sometimes we've had outlier answers that we question, but we don't have a way to track it down to the individual student. Maybe Jared or Ben wouldn't know necessarily, like, how is this presented through the school counselors in order for it to be implemented, kind of, and how is it, like,
Yeah, I just wonder.
introduced?
Students receive advance notice specifically that, for example, on Wednesday we'll be doing this. This is the purpose of it. Here are the overall topics that are going to be addressed. Going to your specific question about, if a student's been sexually abused, they know that these questions are coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they may then opt to A, report to the counseling office, B, say I'm not going to take it, or just simply be prepared for it.
So we give them that scaffolding that something's going to be asked that could be.
Yes, it doesn't come to them blind, they come to, and then they take it on the Chromebook, just selecting the responses throughout.
And they can skip questions too, if they don't want to answer it. They don't have to answer all of the questions.
Wouldn't it be when the parents find out that's gonna happen and they get a copy of the survey, they could sit down with their child and make that decision, maybe even together. Are you gonna be able to do this, okay, or not?
Well, in some of those questions, the parent's the primary source of that problem.
So Jared, when they introduce this too, I mean, not everybody's great at reading the instructions. So like screens are very tiny. So when they're given these, in addition to, telling them the benefits and why its purpose is, does somebody verbally explain that any or all of the questions are optional?
Yes.
Like explicit?
Yeah, we have a script that Mr. Silker, the counselor that leads us, will read. And again, there's advance notice, and then on a day of, it's done by one person, so it's consistent through all classrooms.
Perfect.
And one of the biggest advantages is, like I think of Diana Diaz-Granados in the community through Better Together in La Crosse. She's able to get some outstanding grants that our students, we benefit from using the data that's collected throughout all of La Crosse County.
So in terms of the middle school, I was an MP for 21 years, so my head's not in the sand about when these things can occur and how they do occur. But developmentally, when's it appropriate to introduce these topics? Is something as impersonal, mechanical as Scantron survey to 10-year-olds, as I read the middle school one, sexting, sexual assault. When is that developmentally appropriate, and when are we worried that we perhaps are introducing topics to them? Has this happened before there's ever been a conversation about what this is?
And I don't know the history on it, but there was a decision at some point that we, at the middle school level, even though it is, I believe it starts at 6th grade, we only survey 8th graders.
Okay, so that's what I should take from this, is 6th and 7th graders aren't asked these questions.
Correct. They are not they do not participate in the survey.
We're only
In our district.
8 to 12. That's on
The questions are the
Question
same.
says-
If we had 6th or 7th graders
Right.
take it, we're asking for 8th graders would take the middle school one, and then 9 through 12 would take the high school one.
Okay, so third question about 6th, 7th, 8th grade, are you with the following questions? It would only be 8th grade with the following questions.
With the whole survey.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
We're only asking for permission for 8th graders to take
Right.
this.
Tonight.
Yep.
Okay.
6th and 7th grade have not
Will
taken it
not
in the
take it.
past.
So there's the high school survey, there's the middle school survey, and then there's the optional questions.
Okay, I think what's just throwing me for a loop is that question 3, what grade are you, 6th, 7th, 8th, and that's on the middle school youth risk, not
Yep.
be optional. So I shouldn't, no one that's in 6th, 7th is gonna check that box because they're not being asked that question.
Not in our district.
Okay.
But in other districts.
It will
Because
be.
the surveys are the same regardless of where they take it across the country.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we could offer, or we could have our 6th and 7th graders take it also.
and that was a decision we made here tonight.
At tonight, yes, but historically, we have not had our 6th and 7th
What they're
graders.
requesting is 8th through 12th.
Yeah, I'm just
That's it.
crosswalking for me as
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Yeah.
So you'd only have the 8th graders in the room taking the test, you wouldn't have any 6th
Yes.
graders or 7th.
That is correct, yes.
And by the time we get the results back, it's really beneficial to the high, yes, it's good for the middle school to look at it too, but it's looking at like incoming 9th graders.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of having the opportunity to collect the data, right? What the schools can do with it directly and locally, understanding the climate of what students are going through. I think. And so with that, I'll make a motion to approve the administration of the 8th grade and high school students to participate in the Youth at Risk or Youth Risk Behavior Survey in the spring of 2025, as outlined in enclosures 17 and detailed by Lori.
Second.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Sean, to approve 8th grade students and high school students participating in the Youth Risk Behavior Survey in the spring of 2025, as outlined in multiple enclosure 17, as well as outlined and detailed by Lori. Are there any further questions or comments?
appreciate the effort to introduce that and to walk that out. Old Army saying that a death is a statistic, and at the family level, it's a tragedy. So I just know people can take that very, very difficult individual. Data is amazing. It does inform great things. But I appreciate you looking out for our students specifically as they go through it. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The survey is approved. Thank you. Jason has a couple co-curricular co-op additions.
So the first co-op is our gymnastics co-op with Luther. This has been ongoing for many years. We compete over at PEG, over on French Island. It's been successful. They went to team state last year, and they're having a really good year again this year. So not based off results or anything, but it's always nice to get a plug in that they're doing well on top of the agreements going well at the same time. So that's an every year co-op approval by the board for gymnastics. Do you want them separate and or together?
I suppose in case there's, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is the pleasure of the board on the co-curricular co-op?
I'll make a motion to
Gymnastics.
approve the co-curricular co-op for gymnastics with Luther High School as described by Jason.
Second.
Motion by Tracy, seconded by Sean, to approve the co-curricular co-op for gymnastics with Luther High School, which we are the host for the 25-26 school year. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved.
So the second co-op is for girls hockey. That's a 2-year agreement we signed last year. The only change we're making is we're going to add Luther to the co-op, and West Salem does run that co-op, so essentially every board in the co-op needs to approve allowing Luther to join that girls hockey co-op. So that's what we're asking tonight.
For the second year of a 2-year agreement.
For the second
right?
year of a
And
2-year, and
we'll
then
see it
after
next
that-
year for approval.
Yeah, then we'll get it
assuming
again
that it's
next
gonna
year.
continue.
Yep.
Did
So
you say
it's just,
all of the people, all the different districts that are involved with it all have to agree? That's what you just said?
correct.
Oh, okay.
And who is in the hockey, girls hockey co-op?
And,
Putting you on the spot, Jason.
okay, so
Yeah,
local
okay, maybe
schools.
that's a better.
Essentially,
Is it everybody?
yes,
Pretty
bank,
much?
it's essentially all the MVC schools.
Okay,
The addition of potentially Luther,
okay,
and Bangor also has some athletes that come down as well as GET.
okay, all right.
I'll make a motion to approve the request to add Luther High School to the girls hockey co-op, where West Salem is the host for the 2025-2026 school year as outlined by Jason.
Second.
Motion by Tracy, seconded by Brian, to approve adding Luther High School to the girls hockey co-op that is hosted by West Salem for the 25-26 school year. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is also approved. Thank you, Jason. Are there any requests to remove items tonight from the personnel report for separate consideration? Seeing none, we'll turn it over to Sonia.
Thanks. We have 2 new employees. The first one is Mark Bolt. He started with us in December as our driver and / kind of custodian in our central kitchen. So he's been delivering food between the different buildings and outside sources as well. And then we are asking the board to bring Gloria Grody back. If you recall, Gloria Grody was a school psych at Eagle Bluff that retired a few years ago. Lori mentioned we have a shortage in that area, so she is willing to help us out really just to the end of the school year in a small way, so up to 300 hours, 330 hours for the rest of the school year. And then C is we're starting to fill in our spring coaches, and this is the high school track team coaches, and then we have a few resignation notifications listed there as well.
Do we have a head track coach?
We did. We approved that last fall. We have Zach Wallenfang and we have a head girls and a head boys now as well.
I just saw.
So these are all the assistants, and so Shep is really
Coming
moving
back
to the
in.
assistant role.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel report as outlined in 19 personnel report and detailed by Sonia.
Second that.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Tracy to approve the personnel report as presented by Sonia and outlined in enclosure 19. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Personnel report is approved. Are there any requests to remove items from the consent agenda for separate consideration tonight?
Seeing none, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Tracy to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The consent agenda is approved as presented. The Board of Education will entertain a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to sections 19.85, parens 1, C, D, E, and/or F of the Wisconsin statutes to discuss and, when appropriate, take action on real property purchasing options and strategies, to discuss individual safety drills and related information, and to take action on individual administrator employment contracts. The board will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting at the conclusion of closed session.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Sean, to convene in closed session. Are there any questions? Kristen, will you take a roll call, please?
Eric,
Aye.
Sean,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
and Ann.
Yes, we will convene in closed session in about 3 minutes. Are we staying in here?
Can.
Okay.